Okay, let's take a look at how these slash chords work in the context of a 2-5-1 progression. So in your handout, it says slash chords 2-5-1. We're just going to start off by thinking of these as traditional chord symbols. So we start off with D minor 7 to G7 sus4 to C major 7. And so these triad over bass note or hybrid or slash chord voicings can be nice little substitutes for those sounds. Some of them are an inherent part of the traditional chord. So if you look at D minor 7, for example, well, that is an F major triad over D. But we could keep that F triad and play that over a G, and that gives us a nice voicing for a 5 chord. It's just like a G7 sus4 or G9 sus4. But a lot of times, especially like in 70s pop harmony, Stevie Wonder tunes, Steely Dan tunes, they'll keep that kind of voicing together for the 5 chord, and it sounds really nice. So the first 2 progressions on your handout illustrate those sounds. And then the 1 is a G over C. Here's the next example. F over D or D minor 7, F over G, G over C. And that was a sound that became very popular in the 70s in a lot of fusion styles. And what's nice about it is that I think it strayed away a little bit from traditional jazz voicings. Maybe a very traditional guitar voicing would be this for C major 7, or even this for C major 7. But by putting a G over C, there's no third in there. So it's just a little, a little different. It's subtle, but it's just it's a different sound, Again, here's more of a traditional 2-5. Here's with slash chords. Especially that voicing you hear a lot in Donald Fagen's compositions and Steely Dan. If we look at the next line, we can add a little bit of tension to the 5 chord as well. And that's illustrated in the G13 flat 9, which is basically an E over G. So we can start off with our F over D, then put an E on top of a G, and then G over C. And we could even put a D over C because that's a major 7 sound as well. We can also make the 5 chord fully altered by putting a triad, a tritone away from the root. And that's illustrated in the 3rd line down. We have D minor 7 and then G7 altered. And what we're doing is putting a D flat triad, in this case, over the G. So that example is D over C. And as you move through this handout, just make little notes to yourself where these slash chords might work in the context of a standard. It's a great way to breathe some new life into your harmonic thinking when approaching a traditional standard. I think by this time in the course, if you take 5 or 6 standards that you're accustomed to playing a lot and work through each standard using these different approaches, just take one through with a guide tone approach, take one through with a guide tone plus extensions, use some fat Philly chords, some of these slash chord shapes, the triangle moves, all of the things that we've talked about. You'll just be amazed at all the new ideas that you'll have in your comping. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at a little later in the etude section of this course.